September 12, 2025, the South China Sea. 3:27 a.m. The water was black, silent, heavy with the kind of tension that makes trained soldiers grip their weapons tighter. But that silence, it was a trap. Beneath the surface, beneath the darkness, steel monsters were moving, engines humming, weapons hot. Beijing had made its choice. Tonight, diplomacy was dead. For years, the People's Liberation Army Navy had been playing a dangerous game, harassing merchant vessels, claiming international waters as their own, turning coral reefs into military fortresses. But on this night, China crossed a line no one thought they would dare touch. They weren't just testing boundaries anymore. They were launching the largest naval assault since World War II, and their target, the United States Freedom Rig. This wasn't just any drilling platform. This was 400 feet of American steel, weighing over 120,000 tons, sitting less than 50 nautical miles from disputed territory. It was a statement, a symbol of American power projection, and Beijing wanted it erased from the map. The dragon awakens. What China unleashed that night was nothing short of terrifying. From air bases across Hainan and Guangdong provinces, the People's Liberation Army Navy deployed what intelligence analysts are now calling the most expensive single-strike package in modern naval warfare. A 65,000-ton aircraft carrier, the Shandong, 6 Type 052D guided missile destroyers, each one carrying 64 vertical launch cells packed with anti-ship and surface-to-air missiles, 4 heavily armed frigates, 10 JH-7 fighter bombers, each loaded with 4,000 pounds of precision-guided munitions, and 5 Y-9 electronic warfare aircraft designed specifically to blind American radar systems. Total value, $7 billion, moving as one blade, one weapon, one purpose. American spy satellites caught fragments of the movement. Reconnaissance aircraft detected thermal signatures on the water. But no one believed Beijing would actually pull the trigger. Not against the United States. Not in the middle of the night. Not with this much force. On the Freedom Rig, U.S. Marines stood ready, night vision optics scanning the horizon, fingers resting on triggers. They felt it before they saw it. That pressure building in their chests like iron pressing down on their lungs. Every instinct screaming that something massive was coming, and then, at exactly 3:27 a.m., the horizon exploded. 10 Chinese YJ-18 cruise missiles ripped through the night sky at 550 miles per hour. The sea turned to fire. The Dragon fleet had arrived, and what happened next would change the balance of power in the Pacific forever. Electronic warfare. Hell, the first thing that died wasn't a ship. It was information. 5 Y-9 electronic warfare aircraft unleashed 120 gigawatts of jamming power across the electromagnetic spectrum. For perspective, that's enough raw energy to blind every radar system from Manila to Hanoi. Even the legendary SPY-6 radar arrays, America's most advanced sensor technology, flickered once, then went completely dark. For 5 agonizing seconds, the Freedom Rig was blind. A 120,000-ton fortress. Eyes gouged out, defenseless against 10 incoming cruise missiles traveling faster than commercial jets. But inside that chaos, something extraordinary happened. Discipline took over. Colonel James Marston, a 20-year Marine Corps veteran with deployments across 3 continents, slammed his fist on the tactical console. His voice cut through the alarms like a knife. Switch to manual. Fight by hand. No computers. No targeting systems. No electronic assistance. Just human eyes, thermal scopes, laser rangefinders, and shoulder-fired Stinger missiles. What Beijing designed as a technological massacre became a brutal test of American training and willpower. Private First Class Miguel Sanchez, just 22 years old, spotted the first missile trail through his thermal scope. Target locked. A Stinger launcher barked flame. 1 heartbeat later, a $2 million Chinese cruise missile disintegrated into a fireball, destroyed by a counterweapon costing 1/10 as much. the air filled with thunder. Marines fired again and again, shoulders burning from recoil, hands steady despite the chaos. Each flash of light marked survival. Each explosion was a message written in fire. You will not break us. By 3:36 a.m., 9 out of 10 incoming cruise missiles had been destroyed mid-flight. Above the burning wreckage, 10 JH-7 bombers dove in for the final strike. 7 never returned. Their flaming hulls scattered across the South China Sea like fallen stars. One missile did break through. It detonated just 300 yards from the rig. The shockwave was devastating. Windows shattered. Sandbags ripped open. Men thrown to the deck. 5 Marines wounded. 2 with third-degree burns. 3 permanently deafened. But the Freedom rig still stood. Scarred, smoking, alive, and every American on that platform understood. Survival wasn't just defense anymore, it was defiance. Washington's answer in Washington, D.C., secure communications lines lit up across the Pentagon like a Christmas tree. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff leaned forward, his face carved from stone. "Mr. President, we have confirmation. The attack originated from the Chinese fleet. There was no debate, no hesitation. No diplomatic dance. This wasn't a warning shot across the bow. This was Pearl Harbor for the 21st century. And the United States was about to respond with overwhelming, devastating force." Orders flashed across continents at the speed of light. 2 Ohio-class nuclear submarines, the USS Louisiana and USS Ohio, shifted into firing positions deep beneath the Philippine Trench. 20 Tomahawk cruise missile tubes opened in the darkness, each one waiting for a single word: execute. On Andersen Air Force Base in Guam, engines roared to life. 3 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft lifted off the runway, each carrying $90 million worth of next-generation jamming technology. Their mission: suffocate every Chinese radar system within 400 miles. In the Philippines, U.S. Army batteries armed their ATACMS ballistic missiles, 10-ton spears capable of falling from the stratosphere at Mach 5, hitting targets with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel and the force of an earthquake. At NORAD headquarters, deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, missile silos opened to standby mode. Warheads carrying the explosive equivalent of 500,000 pounds of TNT were placed on 5-minute alert. For the first time in decades, America's entire Pacific defense network moved in perfect synchronization. The president's voice cut through the command center like a blade. America does not seek war, but we will not be struck without consequence. At 4:22 a.m., a final transmission left the Pentagon. One code word: execute. The hammer falls at 4:28 a.m. The ocean screamed. From 200 feet beneath the Philippine Trench, steel doors opened on 2 of the most powerful weapons platforms ever built. A deep rumble rolled through the black water as 20 Tomahawk cruise missiles burst upward in perfect sequence. Each one carried a 1,000-pound warhead programmed for surgical precision. They climbed through darkness, then banked east, heading directly for the Dragon Fleet. Simultaneously, 3 EA-18G Growlers streaked through the night sky from Guam. Their jamming pods flooded the electromagnetic spectrum, blanketing 400 miles of ocean in electronic chaos. Every Chinese radar screen flickered, then died. Communication networks dissolved into static. Command channels collapsed completely. The hunters had become the hunted. But America's retaliation carried more than just missiles. It carried swarms. Over 300 Switchblade and Phoenix Ghost unmanned aerial vehicles spread out like a living storm. Each drone no larger than a surfboard, but absolutely lethal, carrying shaped charges designed to pierce armor and ignite fuel. They flew low, hugging the waves, invisible to radar, guided by satellite relays. They found their targets one by one. The first wave hit the outer ring of the Chinese formation. HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles clawed upward, streaking toward the drones. Laser cannon systems on Type 052D destroyers cut through the air, slicing UAVs by the dozen. In the first 10 minutes, 180 drones were destroyed, their burning fragments raining into the sea. But numbers don't lie. 120 survived, and those were more than enough. One destroyer's radar dome vanished in a flash. Another ship's close-in weapon system exploded as a drone slammed directly into its turret. Bridge windows shattered. Flames tore through command decks. The precision was surgical. Every impact a decapitation strike. Then came the sound from above. Thunder unlike anything else. 2 ATACMS ballistic missiles screamed down from the stratosphere at 5 times the speed of sound. One splashed wide. The second hit a Jankai-class frigate dead center, splitting the 4,000-ton warship completely in half. The explosion lit up the ocean like artificial dawn. Hundreds of sailors thrown into burning oil, and then the Tomahawks arrived. 12 were intercepted by point defense systems. 8 broke through. 4 slammed directly into the flight deck of the Shandong, China's pride, their $7 billion symbol of naval power. 60,000 gallons of aviation fuel erupted instantly. Dozens of J-15 fighters, each worth over $60 million, were reduced to twisted, melting wreckage. The hangar deck ignited. Ammunition began cooking off. One blast after another, ripping through steel bulkheads like tissue paper. Fire rolled across the horizon. The once proud carrier burned from bow to stern, her command structure collapsing, her crew abandoning ship in chaos. Radio intercepts caught the last transmission from the Chinese captain. "The ship is lost. Save yourselves." By 4:55 a.m., the South China Sea was a furnace. 2 destroyers crippled and drifting. 1 frigate completely destroyed. The Shandong dying in flames. Above the smoke, growlers circled silently, jamming, watching, recording everything. In less than 20 minutes, the United States had turned $7 billion of Chinese warships into molten steel and scattered wreckage. The Dragon Fleet was broken, and America's counterstrike had only just begun. No survivors. By 5:10 a.m., the South China Sea was no longer blue. It was burning. Oil slicks stretched for miles, glowing orange beneath the rising sun. The Dragon Fleet, Beijing's $7 billion armada, was finished. The carrier Shandong burned from bow to stern, temperatures reaching 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel buckled and melted. Ammunition detonated below deck in chain reactions. Dozens of J-15 fighters welded themselves into the flight deck, twisted beyond recognition. Helicopters tumbled into the sea, rotors still spinning uselessly in the thick smoke. Command had completely collapsed. The order went out across every surviving channel. Abandon ship. 2 Type 052D destroyers drifted helplessly. One listed at 30 degrees, her engines destroyed, her radar dome obliterated. The other gutted by explosions equivalent to 200 tons of TNT. A Jankai-class frigate had already slipped beneath the waves, taking hundreds of sailors with her into the black depths. The sea itself had become a graveyard. Across 9 square miles of ocean, wreckage floated in eerie silence. Bodies, life rafts, torn metal, all drifting beneath the smoke. The Chinese Navy had never suffered losses like this in modern history. In less than 40 minutes, over 1,200 sailors were killed. 2,000 more were wounded or missing, floating in burning oil, waiting for rescue that might never come. Families that had celebrated their sons as heroes now faced only silence and grief. And on the Freedom Rig, the American fortress that had refused to die, the tally was painfully small. 5 Marines wounded, 2 with burns, 3 with ruptured eardrums, 0 deaths. The rig still stood, battered but defiant, a steel monument to American discipline and willpower. For Beijing, this wasn't just a military defeat. It was total humiliation, broadcast across every satellite feed, every intelligence channel, every global screen. The world had witnessed the greatest naval disaster since World War II. And the message was unmistakable, carved in fire and steel across the Pacific. The United States does not start wars. But if attacked, it will finish them. When its technology is blinded, it fights by hand. When its radars go dark, it still finds the target. Circuits can burn. Technology can fail. But American will does not bend, does not break, does not retreat. As dawn spread across the South China Sea, smoke and fire marked the horizon where the Dragon Fleet once sailed. The water shimmered with oil and ash. Seagulls circled over twisted hulls and floating debris. And the Freedom Rig, scarred, blackened, but still very much alive, stood as living proof that courage and discipline can outlast any storm, any weapon, any threat. The world watches. This battle was never just about steel or missiles or billion-dollar warships. It was about will. The will to endure when every system fails. The will to fight back when blinded and outnumbered. The will to finish what others begin. The United States Navy proved once again, when America is tested, it does not retreat. It adapts, it strikes, and it wins. The Freedom Rig stood tall against the full weight of the Dragon Fleet, a symbol of the discipline, courage, and quiet professionalism that defines every American sailor and Marine. Their actions that night reminded the world of a simple, powerful truth. Freedom is never free. It is guarded every day, every hour by those willing to stand in the storm. What does this battle mean for the future of the Pacific? For the balance of power between superpowers? For the next generation of naval warfare? The answers are still being written. But one thing is already certain. When the next storm comes, America will be ready.